Of our super simple outsourcing webinar, and I hope you are all doing well. I live up near the Seattle area, so I don't know if any of you are football fans out there, but the Seattle team is going to be playing the Super Bowl, so everyone around here is kind of electric and excited. So very exciting weekend for myself. I hope that you all are doing well. And we'll check in with Paul in a second here. He's on with us as well. But I want to do a couple of things to start the webinar. Make sure we're firing up good here. And as you probably saw in the invitation or an email from Kevin, we have Paul presenting the top 10 agency mistakes that he's seeing done today. So it's going to be a pretty good webinar, and more on that in a moment. But first, the pre-flight check recording. That's actually a note for myself. Paul and I were just chatting about that, about failing to hit record, and we've each done it once, and I hope not to do it again. So that's my note for myself, recording. All right, that is running. And speaking of recording, well, audio first. Let's do audio. Can anybody hear me out there? I want to make sure that you can hear, and if you could type in the chat panel and just say a quick hello that you can hear us, that would be great. All right, here comes some responses. Thank you so much. All right, a lot of familiar names. Hello, everybody. All right. Thanks, Todd, Donald, Roger, Bruce, Jason, Val. Welcome, welcome. All right, thank you, everyone. We do have plans to do some Q&A later today, so if you have some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We may not be able to get to those right away, but we are hoping to get some of those at the end. So, or either write them down or put them in the chat box, and we'll try and circle around. Or if it's appropriate, we can go ahead and address it during the presentation. But we do want to keep the flow going, and so we may do Q&A just at the end. And replays, always get asked about replays, and hence the recording note for myself. We do record these each and every time, and they are posted up on a site. Let me display the link here, and I have also put the link for you in the group chat panel on the top right of your GoToWebinar panel. And if that's disappeared and you're new to GoToWebinar, there's a little orange icon with a white arrow in it. If you click that, you'll expand and find your chat panel, and that is where the link for the replays. So it's a clickable link as opposed to the one on the screen here, but that's where you can find any replay of webinars that we have done. Okay. Another thing that we always get asked about is support and help during the webinar. Now, we do try and address all questions, but if there is a very individual question that relies maybe on a campaign that you're running or on your own unique situation and you don't hear an answer from us, that's probably because we felt it best to answer it on an individual basis. And so for getting those questions answered, on your screen now is contact information for any logins, and that's really logins and admin only for Judy there. And then the main customer support line for Endless Rise and the group is also on the screen, and feel free to reach out to them. They are most helpful, and they're always ready and willing to be able to help you out with your campaigns or any questions you might have. Of course, if you need to get in contact with us at Nitro Support, you can do so by email. Maybe I don't have the email on the screen, but it is support@nitrosupport.com. I can type that into the chat panel real quick here. All right, so I posted that email address, and that's if you have any questions for us directly or super simple outsourcing, you can just shoot us an email right there, and most likely it will be myself handling that or one of our support staff. All right, let's take a look at the webinar today. My name is Matt DeSmet. I'm with Nitro Marketing and the support manager for Kevin, and I run the webinars here. And we have today Paul Steinmetz from Endless Rise, and he is the CEO, and I call him SEO guru, and he's here to present today a nice presentation. So I'll give Paul just a quick moment to say hello. And, how you doing, Paul?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Happy to be on. Yeah, hopefully everyone's having a great Monday. I certainly got plenty of rest over the weekend.
Very good. I didn't get as much rest. All right. Quick look at the agenda today, folks. Wanted to take or let you know the next upcoming webinar. We do these every other week, so February 3rd, and that will be a Q&A session. And the goal of the Q&A session is to allow you to come on and answer any questions you might have, campaign related or maybe client attraction, sales related. And if there's a chance to get a nice good answer for you right there live, we'll do it. If not, we can take away some of those questions and come back to you or come back on the next webinar. But that Q&A session is all about you and finding out what you need and trying to get you the best help we can. So please do join us 2 weeks from today on February 3rd. I will hopefully be able to start that webinar by saying that my Seattle Seahawks have won the Super Bowl, but we will see. We will see. All right. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, we have Paul to do our presentation. And this presentation is actually something that he had done in Denver. And it was the first trip back for Paul to the States in, I think, 5 years. And he came over to participate in the local marketing conference, the first ever local summit. And what it was is an industry-wide event for local marketers, and it's going to be an annual event. I'm not sure of the location yet this year, but it will most likely be in October again. And so this is a presentation that Paul flew all the way from the Philippines all the way to Denver, Colorado, and came up on stage and just presented the top 10 mistakes he's seeing from agencies, what's really tripping them up and what they need to add to their business. And I think you can appreciate Paul would have a nice kind of bird's eye view to agencies all over the world, and including successful agencies. So this is really highly valuable information, in my opinion. I mean, Paul's probably talked to hundreds of successful consultants and agencies, and he's probably also talked to his fair share of ones that are struggling. And so here is the top 10 list that he's come up with of mistakes that are tripping people up and costing extra money. So I think this presentation will be highly valuable for you. I think it's nicely placed in 2014, the beginning of the year here, and you can take a look at your business, bounce it off of Paul's list, and determine if you're doing some of these mistakes and make corrective actions. So with that said, and without further ado, I am going to go ahead and get the screen transferred over to Paul so we can get this fired up. And of course, as mentioned earlier, we do have that Q&A session at the end, time permitting. So let me, Paul, I'm going to do the old screen transfer here.
Sure.
Okay, that should be in the works.
Okay, can people give a shout out? Can you see my screen okay now? And make sure that you can hear me okay. Should be a PowerPoint homepage that says good choice, bad choice.
I do see it on my end, and it looks like others are coming in here letting us know that you're good. So very good. Looks like we are good to go.
Okay. Well, in 2013, I think everyone saw quite a bit of growth in the online marketing in general. I mean, if people could have stocks in the entire online marketing industry, they would have seen them certainly go up quite a bit throughout 2013. I think that as a result of a lot of the Google changes, some unique issues with internet marketing companies were repetitively addressed in the primary, blogs and forums and news publications that are out there. But most all of them, in my opinion, had more to do with pointing out the details that internet marketing agencies are missing within their product methodologies. But underlying product methodologies, addressing more of the core infrastructure of people's internet marketing agencies is where I saw the most mistakes in 2013. We do a lot of webinars about gaining leads and using a lot of lead generation pieces of software, such as local autopilot, for example, and quite a few different tactics on how to get more leads, whether it's training your sales team or putting together an email campaign or a cold calling campaign or hiring a phone calling company or getting a VA to do your phone calls or making flyers, handing them out, social networking, you name it. And, I don't know how many webinars we did throughout 2013 to train people in sales, but towards the end of the year, I started speaking to more agencies about what had they done throughout the year, had they implemented what they had been taught, and you know, at the end of the year, what I realized was is that the companies that I was seeing be successful in lead generation simply put the time into it. I didn't see a consistency from one internet marketing agency to the next to be able to say that's a lead generation tactic that you're supposed to be using. Yes, that's why they're successful. They have that particular piece of software, or because they have a good cold calling script that is making them successful. At the end of the year, what I realized was is near almost no matter what method people were using, that the successful companies were simply putting the time into it to make it work. And on the people that weren't as successful, if they said, I'm really having a hard time getting leads, whenever I asked them how much time per week were they putting into lead generation, it was at a bare minimum. So I think what's to be learned from at least my perspective on what I've seen throughout 2013 is whenever it comes to getting leads, just make sure that you put your time into it. If you don't have clients, then where your 40 hours a week goes towards, which is looking for a lead directly, not researching methodologies, not researching how to do it, just literally spending the time, sending the emails, making the phone calls. Now, of course, if you take one person working really hard, 40 hours a week to get a lead directly involved in lead generation, which means you're emailing, you're calling, you're directly handing out flyers, you're putting in your hard 40 hours a week at a minimum, versus someone who maybe is using some better tactics and better software to do it. Okay, yeah, the second person is probably going to be more productive. But at the end of the day, both of those people putting in their time and energy are going to find their leads and they're going to be able to build their company up. So biggest mistake number 10 is simply not working hard enough to get the leads and spending too much time researching the best methodologies. It's almost as if it's a form of procrastination to a certain degree. And I got some error popping up on my PC. Okay, top mistake number 9, not pricing services properly. A couple big standouts from 2013. I mean, I talked to companies, whether they're big or small. But what really surprised me one time is I ran into a company that had about 50 clients, and I thought they were pricing their services tremendously underneath what they were supposed to be pricing them and they weren't making the profit margins that they needed to be making. Now, uh, actually, Larry said he's hearing an echo from my audio. Is anyone else hearing an echo? I'm thinking maybe.
It's pretty good on my end.
Let me see. Is that any better? I had a
That's a
second audio source plugged in.
Yeah, I think that's a little more or less
Okay. Larry,
canny.
the
Yeah.
original reporter, said that it's better. Okay, actually had the good old webcam plugged in as well, and of course it's using the webcam audio as usual. So
Uh,
unplugged it. We're good to go. Does anyone have any feedback on top mistake number 10? Does anyone identify with that? Have you ever found yourself in a position spending too much time thinking about how to generate leads, and then you look back on the week or the month and you have no leads, but you have a lot of research into how to go and get them? Does anyone identify with that? I assume most people do. Okay, yeah. Happens to the best of us. Even I spent a lot of time personally training a particular person. I won't mention their name, but I put a lot of time into training someone who had actually trained other people on how to generate leads, and then they went to go get their own leads, and they were talking about all of their plans, all of everything that they were going to do, their master strategy to implement with everything from Chamber of Commerce to lead generation software on how to run it here, and automate it there. And then I checked in with them after about 2 months of their master plan, and they simply only put in, probably in the span of 1 month, about 8 direct hours into it, which is just not enough. You need to put in a tremendous amount of hours in the very beginning. It's hard work. There is no shortcut to getting leads and building a big company. Some software has helped, but still, it's not easy to set that software up. You got to really apply yourself. Okay, top mistake number 9, which I started to talk about, and then I got off track. Not pricing services properly. You really need to know how to price your services. I mean, there's pricing strategies that people write books on. I don't know how many books have been written on pricing strategies for the retail market, but I'll bet there's hundreds of them, really. So what's the big deal about pricing, and why can pricing go so in depth, and why are there books written on it? Anywhere from tiny businesses to big corporations have either been tremendously successful as a result of their psychology and pricing, or they have also gone out of business as a result of how they decided to price what it is that they're selling. So you really need to understand your pricing. When we did a webinar quite a long time ago that's in the eDasher webinar archive on pricing. You can look through there and find it. But we talked about pricing strategies for about 2 hours, and we're just on the tip of the iceberg, really. Yeah, on average, people double the rates of what they're paying for the outsourcing services, but you could charge a lot more in certain situations, and you could charge a lot less, or however how you're going to display your pricing. You could be using pricing strategies such as putting the pricing point on an array of prices much higher at the desired package you want people to be buying, and then making your higher profit margin on the lower package. Bracket pricing, for example. So anyways, you got to put your time into understanding your pricing, and if you're ever going to ask someone else, how should I price my services, and if you're going to accept their answer at face value and go price your services, you're being lazy. And I'm seeing a tremendous amount of marketing agencies being really, really lazy whenever it comes to trying to figure out how to price your services. Now, if you weren't able to ask anyone like me or anyone else how to price your services, and you were going to do the work on your own, like you still should do, what would you do? Well, you should know your product well enough to know the value behind the product clearly, but you also need to research your competition and understand what kind of rates there are in your industry. So whenever people you're pitching services to say, hey, I think that's really high, you can say, actually, I'm lower than everyone else in the city and the surrounding area. You should know that, right? And through that, you'd be able to create pricing strategies. So you want to be able to know your competition. You need to know the services, and you also need to know a little bit of strategies behind how you're pricing what you're pricing. And as a reminder, remember to price your reoccurring marketing services biannually or quarterly at a minimum. And what does that mean? Don't invoice your clients monthly. Yes, for monthly marketing services, which would include what? Pay-per-click marketing, search engine optimization, online reputation management, social media optimization, recurring monthly marketing services. I mean, you could have a client, and preferably your client stays with you for how long? As long as you're in business, right? But don't charge them monthly. Most everyone's charging their clients monthly, and I don't know why you would do that. State your monthly rate. If for instance, for search engine optimization at whatever level you're going to charge $500 a month, that should be a lower level search engine optimization package. But then say that, yeah, I charge $500 a month, right? That's my monthly fee on that. Okay, and then whenever you get down to the details with them, let them know that maybe that $500 a month is either at quarterly installments or biannually installments. So if that's your $500 a month is at biannually, then on quarterly payments, you would make it even higher because it's a lower one. So don't go below quarterly payments if you want the client long term. There's just no reason for it. Mac says SEO seems to be hard to sell these days. I suppose, Mac, it depends on who you're talking to and your sales strategy. I certainly know a lot of companies that would say otherwise about SEO. I see a lot of companies with no problem selling SEO, but again, it's going to depend on your sales strategy. If you have clients in SEO that have the marketing budget, then it's an avenue of what type of online marketing are they going to invest their budget in. So if SEO seems hard for you to sell, you have to realize, is it just hard to sell online marketing to a company? Does a company actually have a budget? Because if people are going to release an online marketing budget of some sort into something, SEO is one of the easiest things to sell to them. But if you're going to try to sell a product to a company that doesn't have a budget, or isn't convinced that they need to invest it in online marketing, you're going to have a hard time selling them any format of online marketing. Okay, so not pricing your services properly, and I do have another thing to add on to that. There's a lot of foot in the door strategies, and boy, Matt, Kevin probably has a couple of them that are out there. I know other people do as well. But I do see a lot of people leveraging low dollar foot in the door strategies. And I think that they put it, I see what's odd is the majority of people that I know that are using get the foot in the door strategies, and you're selling a really cheap product, um, people start to rely on that and front load their sale with that, and unfortunately close their sale with that and have a hard time upselling, versus people that I see going in for the hard sale on a large service like a couple $1,000s a month. And I see people have more success that are going in for the big sale without leading with a foot in the door strategy. Now, I think a foot in the door strategy on something that might cost the client less than $50 a month is a good idea as a backup plan when you fail to sell them something that's larger. But I'm seeing a lot of people with foot in the door strategies leading with them, and staying focused on getting through the consulting, getting through the time of explaining the foot in the door strategy, whether it's online reputation management or whatever else you're trying to get your foot in the door on, and spending more time on that and having a harder time upselling them on a larger marketing service. And I think you were going to say something.
Oh, me?
No,
Yeah,
no
sorry.
problem.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, sorry. I mean, I guess the one comment is we have talked about this in the past on the Q&A, but you make a good distinction there. Not it becomes a problem, especially if you don't move beyond that foot in the door strategy. And I know Kevin talks about it a little bit, and we've talked about it on Q&A webinars, because for some they're just kind of entering sales, and it's a bit intimidating, right off the bat to ask for somebody for 3,000 a month or 2,000 a month, and maybe they need to build some reputation in the community or something. So I think segmenting, or identifying what stage of your business that you're in will really help identify whether you need foot in the door or go with Paul's model, which I think ultimately is bigger revenue. but yeah, no, that's the only comments I've got.
Okay. Max says, is there any strategy that you can recommend a client will get an ROI? Well, supposedly on any marketing service you sell someone, they can get a positive return on investment, but then that gets into how do you track it, right? So yeah, of course, I mean, search engine optimization is a strategy where the client can get a return on investment, but return on investment gets difficult to analyze whenever you're looking into analyzing the return on investment based on the client's product or service sales. And there's a lot of variables involved in that that are outside of your control, such as, do they answer their phone? Are they polite when they answer their phone? Do they have a good product or service? Is their product or service competitively priced? Is their product or service seasonal? Is the economy in a position, or the trend in their industry in a position to where they're on an upwards trend? Getting clients is easy. Are in their geographic local area, is the competition saturated? Now, getting into positive return on investment for a company as a whole after you bring them leads gets into business consulting. And people ask us all the time, do you do conversion optimization, or do you do consulting with people on how to get people to convert more for them once they hit their business? And I say no. And the reason why I say no is because that's business consulting. Yeah, there's things that need to be there on the website, like, hey, can they see your product? Is there a call to action there? But really, at the end of the day, if you've got a great product, you need to have a decent to great website. But typically what takes someone from converting clients isn't just because their phone number wasn't in the right place. For instance, maybe it should be down and to the right by 200 pixels or something like that, or the banner should have a different girl on it because that one's not as attractive as this one might be. Those a lot of the conversion optimization details that you would read in books, unless they're really blatant, then most of those are not going to make or break a company. A lot of it has to do with business consulting, which is why whenever I say, can you bring someone an ROI, I would say you can bring them an ROI in regards to the traffic that they're getting. And I base that off of what they would have to pay for that traffic through a paid medium. So let's say that someone is going to pay for pay-per-click through Google AdWords, and their average cost per click is, say, $6, $7, maybe $8, right? So if their average cost per click is $7, and let's say through search engine optimization, you worked on a little bit with their, because our SEO package does touch and the referral websites that are created, the social media sites, of course, organic traffic, and it does increase direct traffic as well. Now, through all that traffic that you might be bringing through, maybe you brought them an additional 300 clicks in 1 month, and they're a smaller company. Well, it's at $7 a click, that's $2,100, and that's certainly an ROI for them if they're paying you $1,000 a month. So in regards to that, that's how I like to look at marketing ROI on traffic. If their industry competitors are willing to pay for that through AdWords, and you can prove to them the amount of value you bring to them in traffic, you're making them a return on investment in what they put into a marketing medium such as SEO. Now, what happens if you show them a traffic return on investment, something that's cheaper than if they had to pay for it direct, but then they say, yeah, but I didn't close any of the leads. Well, now you need to cross that bridge if you're going to into business consulting, right? Which is, if you want to get into that hemisphere, unless their website is just horrible, then you need to get into the hemisphere of, well, some business models are just a bad idea. I saw a proposal request come through last month, randomly looked into it, and it was someone setting up a brand new shop to sell used cell phones on a national level with an e-commerce site. And this is probably like $1,000 website they're releasing, and they're willing to put marketing dollars into it. Well, is it a good idea to try to sell used cell phones right now in this day and age with the level of competition that's there, starting from scratch without millions of dollars sitting behind you? Absolutely horrible idea. Do not do that. So, I mean, there's good and bad business models at the same time. So whenever people get into the subject matter of ROI, you need to very clearly differentiate traffic ROI and actual company profit margins off of services and products sold ROI. And that takes you from the difference between digital marketing consultant to physical business consultant. And those are two completely different ball games. And I think people consider them the same whenever they say ROI consulting and online marketing, and they're absolutely not the same. In fact, if it was a higher end company, their traffic generation consultant would be completely different from their business consultant. Okay, went off on a tangent on that one. Sorry about that. Don says, is there a sweet spot for a monthly SEO investment and an ideal ROI? Again, if we're talking about traffic ROI, generally the amount of traffic generated on a value level should be twice what they're paying for it. They should be getting that much of a bargain. In terms of the SEO investment, I think that the amount of investment that goes into the outsourcing back end for any local service company should be $500 a month, and I think you should be charging them upwards of that, about $1,000 a month. So if people aren't able to spend $1,000 a month on marketing, then they are not profitable as a company. So let me say that one more time. If people are not able to spend $1,000 a month on marketing, then they are not profitable as a company. And that means you're going to take on a client that is a sinking ship. Does that make sense to everyone? Let me get some shouts out here. Does anyone know what's the recommended percent of a company's profit that they're supposed to spend on marketing? Anyone? Take your average local service company, and what percent of their profit margin should they be reinvesting back into marketing? Got about a mixed spread. Some people are saying 3 to 5%, others saying 15%, 8 to 10%. And yeah, it's going to depend on where you read, right? I agree with 8 to 10%. So let's take it 10%, which I like that number a lot. I like rounded numbers. At 10%, if they're going to spend $1,000 back into marketing, then they must be making $10,000 a month, right? Which means that throughout the year, their company would make $120,000 in profit. So that's not a big company, and that's a small company. Now, keep in mind that whenever you look at profit margins, usually that includes what else they're reinvesting back into their company, which they could be reinvesting back into what? Everything. Maybe they need to reinvest back into the company for computers, for a new office space, for a new carpet, for whatever other upgrades. That comes out of their profit margin. You know, that's not general operating expenses. So maybe at the end of the year, they're only profiting by $50,000 because they chose to spend, you know, $50,000 investment back into the company on different things that they needed, and, you know, 10% of that should have gone towards marketing. So in other words, if they don't have $1,000 a month to spend on marketing at the 10% rule, they are not making very much profit. Not enough to say, yeah, I am profitable. No, no. If they can't spend $1,000 a month, if they are profitable, it's just enough to barely say they're profitable. And they're teeter-tottering at best on being in the red zone. So for the people that go out there and you say these companies can't afford online marketing, well, use the 10% rule, then come back and tell yourself, is the problem that they can't do it, or is the problem that they don't understand that they need to reinvest back into their company to make sure that they can grow, or at the bare minimum for self-preservation, right? Okay. I'll get off my high horse on that one. 8. So countdown 2013 internet marketing agency mistakes. Countdown on number 8, lack of marketing agency uniqueness. Yeah, coming from the guy that sells reseller websites that look alike, right? But they can be customized and changed, and you know, Matt, I think you guys got some great sites that come with people's identity as well. But you know, these sites that you have, you can change and customize. So yes, we have a lot of resellers, but the truth of the matter is, the majority of resellers that come through super simple outsourcing, right, are self-standing internet marketing agencies before they sign up with us. So I'm saying that I see a lack of internet marketing agency uniqueness looking at the agency's online presence before they signed up with us. So it's not just that I'm looking at, you know, our resellers and saying, hey, you all look alike, and people say, hey, well, that makes sense, they're your resellers. No, no. They had their own websites, the majority of them, before they signed up with us. And why is it that so many online marketing agencies look identical? And maybe you've realized this when you went to go look at your competition, because you're supposed to understand what kind of competition is out there from a pricing perspective, right? Have any of you noticed how all internet marketing agencies look alike? Anybody? Anyone want to give a shout out to that? Is it just me, or does everyone look alike? Could probably make an inappropriate joke about that on some other things, but I won't. No one's going to give a shout out? Okay, all right, well, you can take the fifth on it. Randy's saying yes, they're all identical. Absolutely, read their content. I mean, come on, you guys have had to go out there before and even say, hey, well, I need to write some content for this page on my website or that page. So you go out there and look at some of your competition and realize that you're reading kind of the same stuff. You're hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And I know that it's difficult to not be that guy, but I'm saying don't be that guy is what I'm saying. And it's not hard to be different. I mean, it's really not. It's actually using it. It's actually so easy to be different. And you know, if you live in a particular city, right? Then maybe you want to focus your attention on your own backyard. Does anyone want to give some shouts out? What city are you in? For instance, Todd or Randy or Chris there. What city are you guys in? Side comment while I'm waiting. Randy says the joke is somewhere on their sites. They all have a blurb about why they're different from everyone else. Yeah. They copy the first 3 paragraphs on a particular page off their competitor and they end it by saying, we are different. Okay, Randy says, I'm in Toronto. Val says, I'm in London. Okay. And I got a Central New Jersey shout out. Okay, so let me tell you how you can make yourself different just on a local hemisphere. All right, there for bundle your digital marketing services with something other type of marketing service from another vendor in your local area that will give you wholesale rates and still let you come in underneath their retail rates on some sort of marketing package for your client. Did anyone follow me on that one? For instance, what type of other local marketing agency is not in competition with you that you could have some sort of a strategic partnership with that you get lower rates and then you bundle it in with your digital marketing plan? Anyone? Any thoughts on that? What about a print company locally? Does the client that you're going to be marketing for have flyers? Do they have brochures? Do they have t-shirts? Do they have hats? If they don't, they need them. Who doesn't have that? You know, if your client's willing to even pay for a t-shirt, why wouldn't you have them? Every single company that's out there, they should have t-shirts that are available. They should have hats that are available, especially if people are willing to pay for them or they make a really big order. They need to get their brand out there. If they don't have brochures or flyers, they need them. These are basics that things that people need. Do they have a decent business card? You know, whenever it comes to a marketing presence, especially for any local company, they need to have their print side covered. And one of the things that you can do to make yourself unique is to say, hey, whenever you launch your digital marketing campaign with us, we're going to make sure that we also cover your print needs. And here's how easy it is. They pay for the digital marketing package and they pay for the print marketing package, which they think they're getting from you. And here's how you give them that. You call them after they pay for it and say, okay, now for the digital, I'm going to intake you. And for the print, John's going to be calling you with so-and-so company. He'll take care of everything for you. He's the best. Hey, that was pretty easy, right? You even made a little bit of money off of it. And you made yourself stand out because how? You said, I'm not just a digital marketing company. I'm an all-around brand company. I'm a branding firm. I'll brand you at the same time. I'll make sure that all your print needs are covered. Are you unique now? Are you standing out from your other local competitors that are digital only and not paying any attention to the print needs of the client? Yeah. And what if you called you're the local radio station that, you know, is just for the local community and it's a smaller one and you inquire to them on how low are their rates? Probably pretty low. What if your digital marketing campaign for your local service providers that you're targeting in your back seat, whether it's in London or it's in Toronto, you had an option to wrap in digital radio commercials at the same time, which would drive people to a particular landing page or promote the latest promotion. It's not that much work. All you got to do is call them in and see if you can get a lower rate on them for your clients and just put it as an option. Now, let's say you do those 2 things. Now, on your homepage, what are you? You're a branding firm. You handle internet traffic. You handle internet branding. You handle print branding. You handle their radio presence if needed, and you can handle all of their front side marketing as a general marketing consultant and brand consultant. And now are you different? Have you ever seen anyone do that that's a competitor to you in your local community? Those are just 2 ideas. If you wanted to get into software that's customized for particular customers in different niches, it's the same thing. Find something that they need, call the company, get it at a lower rate, bring it into your service set, whether it's a customized CRM or customized email system or anything, something, anything. It's just all these internet marketing agencies look so much alike that it doesn't take very much to make you look different and stand out. So if I were you, I would put effort into that and make yourself stand out. Chris says, so does the partner company that sells t-shirts, for instance, sell the t-shirts under their business? Sure, why not? It's local business, right? If you're selling, if you're pitching someone in Toronto your marketing services, what's one of your advantages? You're in Toronto. Are they going to think less of you because you have a relationship with another Toronto print company that handles the print side of things? Absolutely not. No. So yeah, I mean, leverage other people in your community at the same time. And hey, you know what's kind of cool? What if that print company that you leverage also sends you customers from their print database? That'd work for you, wouldn't it? They should be doing the same thing, right? So maybe you give them some rev share off of clients that they should throw your way. Anyhow, 2013, it was really evident, as it is every year, that people need to put more time into making themselves stand out and be unique. So I think that definitely your goal for 2014 needs to be to make sure that you work towards making yourself unique and stand out a little bit from the pack. Countdown to number 7, insufficient legal paperwork, contracts, and agreements. I know when you're just starting out your business, it's a pain in the butt to think about this stuff. And if you don't have business experience, owning your own business before, these things can be daunting to put together. They can be confusing, and it's difficult when you try to do this yourself, because if you're trying to get legal paperwork together for your company and you look into non-compete agreements, non-disclosure agreements, non-recruit covenants, ownership of confidential information contracts, these things can be anywhere between 10 and 100 pages long on a template. And how do you know what you need and what you don't need? These things can be very daunting and confusing. And in the rare situation, you could be in a situation to where if you didn't have the right paperwork in place to protect yourself on certain liabilities, it could break your company. It could. It's in a rare situation. But do you really want to take that risk? I mean, typically you could come out the gate operating with little to no legal terms of service between you and the client and run for 5 years and not get yourself into a situation where you're like, oh my God, if I would have just put that together, I would still be in business. But, you know, why take the risk? So definitely one thing that I see that needs to be pointed out is that the majority of people do not have proper legal paperwork in place. Some people in certain areas will say, hey, well, having a non-compete agreement, if I do have employees, for example, is not legal in my area. Well, whenever I say non-compete, I mean that whole arena. So even in your area, if you say, hey, I do have an employee, but non-compete is not enforceable, well, okay, maybe it's not a non-compete, but there's certain things that are in a typical non-compete that apply anywhere. Like, for instance, could your employee take your database of clients, step outside your company, and start going after every single one of them, no matter what state they're in? Now, that might not classify indirectly in a non-compete, and you need to get with your local attorney and see what that does classify under, but there are certain things that can protect you that you should be protected on that typically would be in a non-compete. And keep in mind, most non-competes, the majority of the purpose of a non-compete is psychological. If you do have an employee or a salesman for you that steps out to try to do his own thing, typically they've thought about it for months, and then they formulated their game plan, and then they make a move, right? But having a non-compete with serious consequences in place will keep their minds from going into a position of saying, hey, this would be worth it. I could do this. Well, if you don't have that in place, then the mindset to wander towards that is wide open. They know you have no paperwork in place. So if you do have salesmen or employees, you need to have a non-compete of some sort in place. And if it can't be called a non-compete because of your area, then call it something else and get with your attorney. Non-disclosure agreement. You should have that, especially if you do have employees or VAs or people that are even handling contract signing for you. Non-recruit covenant, again, that applies to if you do have employees. Ownership of confidential information. This definitely should be included in your client contracts, employment contracts for contractual employees. If you do have VAs or if you are contracting freelancers, make sure that you do have contracts for them. I don't consult a lot on contractual employees because I prefer people just to, hire us for outsourcing. But the agencies that I have consulted for before on the contractual employees that they do have in place, almost none of them have contracts in place with them. And it's just not professional to not have something in place for the employee particularly, and to protect yourself at the same time. Also, whenever it comes to contractual employees, whenever it comes to the realm of the law, most people have no idea how those sort of statutes would hold up in an international court of law. For instance, if you had a contractual employee through the Philippines, could you take him to court? No, not really. In fact, by law, if you wanted to get down to the nitty-gritty, you're not supposed to have contractual employees directly employed from the USA to the Philippines. You're supposed to go through a middleman company that's responsible for making sure the taxes get paid, right? But you probably don't know that, which means that you pretty much have zero protection whenever it comes to having contractual employees direct or VAs direct between you and the Philippines. And the same goes for a lot of different countries. So knowing that probably would be a good idea. Covering terms and conditions on client contracts. To me, this is the number one portion of this. Okay, so the other ones that I went over, all right, not too big of a deal. If you don't have a refund policy, then you need to stop everything you're doing. You can go ahead and turn off the webinar if you want to. Go write your refund policy. If you don't have a refund policy and you're in business, then you have a problem. Endless Rice has a refund policy. We don't give refunds. I mean, yeah, we do. We show discretion in different situations, and sometimes there's some blatant reasons why we need to give a refund. But in general, our refund policy is stated as we do not give refunds. So regardless of what your refund policy is, you have to have it stated, and it needs to be put in your terms of service, right? That's absolutely mandatory and necessary. If you get into a refund situation with a client, even if the client's trying to take advantage of you, you need to have stated somewhere what your refund policy is. And that's the first thing that a credit card company is going to ask you. What's your refund policy? Statement of tangible work provided. Do you state in the client contract what is and what is not proof of work done? You need to say it somewhere somehow, because if you do get into a refund situation with a client, do you know what you're going to have to present? The work that's been done. And sometimes work that's been done is difficult. For instance, if you're managing a PPC campaign, how do you show proof of work done? Are you documenting every single little change that you did inside of that AdWords platform? No, you're not. So what is proof of work done? What are the terms around that? And that's what you need to be thinking on the contract whenever you state what is this what are you going to be responsible for showing as the work that's been done, and in what format, to what degree. Or do you show that work done that says I have fulfilled what my agreement is with you? So that goes hand in hand with a refund policy. And these are basics 101 to every single company. And yes, the majority of younger internet marketing agencies do not have a sufficient statement of tangible work provided as per whatever they're providing in a contract or terms of service, nor do they have a proper refund policy. A guarantee, if any, typically is not properly laid out. I mean, if you have a guarantee, there should be conditions. Endless Rise still has a guarantee on SEO services if all of the conditions are met, and most people don't meet those conditions. But we have conditions. The majority of internet marketing agencies that I have seen that offer a guarantee, which again, I don't recommend offering the guarantee on your side, but the majority of people that I have seen offering a guarantee have no conditions. Really, I'm serious. It's just a straight up guarantee, no conditions. And I'm like, wow, that's just lazy. You got to think better than that. You got to put a lot of conditions in place, because there are a lot of conditions. Chargeback policy of handling credit cards. You need to have a chargeback policy. What's a chargeback policy? Well, if you're in a situation with a client that's just a jerk, and they're going to go and file a chargeback just because they got in an argument with you, or just because they don't like you, or maybe they go off in right field, and you sense that there would be a problematic client. They lost their head one day. You have no idea what's going on. They claim that you're trying to rip them off. Who knows? Stuff happens, and they go and file a chargeback. Now, what happens if your credit card company issues them that chargeback? Does that mean that it's okay? Does that mean that it's even legal? No. Did you know that a credit card company can uh, approve a chargeback to the client, take the money out of your account, give it back to the client, and it doesn't mean that it's legal? But what does it mean? Does it mean that you take the credit card company to court? Or does it mean that for you to pursue it further, you have to take the client to court? Can you hold the client liable even on filing criminal charges on a client that filed for a chargeback on you and won, but they can still be taken to court and lose? Did you know that? So there are some serious chargeback terms that you can put in place to hold clients in place whenever it comes to that sort of a thing. And I've given consulting on that to the larger agencies that I work with, and you should know that as well. We have an example contract in our document library. If you just go to our document library and search for the word contract, you'll be able to download it and reference the chargeback policy that's written into there. But again, these are things that are 101 that you need as a business, and they need to be there. So don't be cheap. Pay your attorney to create or review these if you have the money to do that, and they need to comply with your local laws. Okay, so every single person that ever starts up a new company needs to go through this legal grind of understanding their liabilities, their terms, their conditions, and what their contracts are going to look like with their clients. If you haven't done that, you miss something that's one of the core foundations to liability protection to any company that's out there. The majority of new internet marketing agencies are not covering themselves on this, and I know you really don't want to hear it, but if you haven't done this and you want a serious business, you need to cover your basics. Okay, 6, little to no training materials for employees. If you do have employees, did you create training materials? One of the reasons why this comes up with us is because we don't speak to your clients, right? We're a white label agency, so we don't speak to your clients. So then comes in the realm of project management. Who's going to relay information from us through you to your client and get that information back to us, which is what we call project management. Now, you're going to have to handle project management on your side. If you're running your company and you have enough business coming through, you want to focus on sales and the higher level structuring to your company. You don't want to be wrapped up in project management, which means at some point in time you need to hire a project manager. Now, you could do that as a VA, a remote worker, or you could hire someone in-house, preferably. Now, whenever it comes to this, that means that, yes, as you grow your company at some point in time, you will have an employee or employees if you don't already. And whenever you do, are you providing training material to them? And what I tell people is, if you want to hold your employee responsible, then you need to give them training material to a high enough degree of detail to hold them responsible. You need to be able to say, I told you so, but not through verbally, through training, documented training, right? So if you want them to go through a series of tasks, create the training materials for them, put it in front of them, make sure that they're able to review them, and then hold them responsible according to the training materials that you put together. If you're going to take the time to verbally tell them everything, then it's about the amount of time that it would take for you to record that voice anyways on a video and render it and give them something that they can reference. Again, not just one time through verbal commands. So if you're going to have employees, you got to have training materials. Almost every single company that I've ever spoken to that has a VA or in-house employee, and even whenever I'm flying in the States recently and met with a couple marketing agencies, and they did have employees, the training materials that they had in place whenever I looked into them, they were not training materials. They weren't. They're resources for education. They were not training materials. If you want to have employees and successfully be able to manage employees, you should have the training materials in an organized format. They should be extremely detailed. They should contain images or videos when necessary, and your training material should be able to cover 70% of the required training and the training material alone. Is it more work to create the training materials or to hire the employee? It's much, 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 much more work to create the training materials. The vast majority of why everyone comes to me and says, Paul, I'm having a really hard time staffing project managers and getting them to work out. My response is, do you have training materials? And then if they say yes then I start asking some penetrating questions about those training materials. I have yet to run into anyone that has shown me legitimate training materials for project management to date. So if you want to have successful employees, you have to be a successful trainer, and that's not through verbal training on the phone. That's not through telling your employee, hey, I'll get time and I'll sit down with you and I'll go over X, Y, and Z. Why would you do that? Cover the core training through documented training materials. That way, if you have a turnover on an employee, someone else plugs into the training materials and then they're good to go. So if you require employees, remember there is a lot of work into being able to create training materials for an employee, and you need to have those in place. Okay, countdown number 5, no viral growth game plan. Now, in the beginning, when you start to get clients, it's a grueling process. I don't care what your method you're using. In the very beginning of starting out, or if you don't have enough clients to put yourself in the green, it's a grueling process. Running the software can be a grueling process. Getting the referrals, harvesting leads in your own backyard, even if you come from a different industry, getting those leads is hard work. You know, closing marketing business is not easy. It's not, and it's not going to be. This is not the easiest industry to be in the world, and for that matter, neither is any successful industry that you ever get into. You know, how many people have a real estate broker's license, which is like what I think like 1 out of 10 Americans, or some ridiculous number like that. Why does no one succeed in it for the most part? It's difficult. You know, successful businesses are not easy to get leads in, but once you get up and running, you can get things to where they can start autopiloting your leads more and more and more. But you need to have some sort of a game plan in the future for how it is that you're going to go viral, as I put it. And my definition of viral growth is that the leads come to you. You don't have to grow, you don't have to put all the grueling energy and time into closing one lead after one lead after one lead after one lead, and it just seems like it's agonizing amount of work to close every single lead. You want to get into a position to where leads are coming in one form or another at a rate that allows you to grow at the growth rate that you want to be growing at. And at whatever the situation is, I consider that to be viral growth. Okay? So what's an example of a viral growth game plan? Maybe you set up, maybe your viral growth game plan in the future is that you know that if you put your time into setting up some sort of a free publication on advice and getting enough subscribers within your community, and eventually get into the speaking community to other local businesses in your arena, that eventually you'll get enough notability and recognition that you'll start having leads trickle through recommendations at a fast enough pace to give you the growth that you're looking for. All right, well, that's cool. That's some sort of a viral growth game plan. Is that a real solid one? It's decent. What if you offer in-house training to companies with marketing departments in the future, and you put all your work into setting up that structure outside of just your grueling lead after lead generation strategy? Maybe you offer certification training to individuals in your community. Maybe you get into a niche and establish strong referral partners. Now that's a very legitimate one. Maybe you get into the dental niche, and so you get into a publication like, I think it's Dental Town, that conference, or some dentist magazine, and you give some sort of a rev share to them, and so you get free advertisements in their magazine, and you're giving up a piece of your pie in exchange for leads, and now they're coming in and you've made your referral partners successfully, and now you have leads trickling through and closing at a rate that gives you the growth that you were looking for. Okay, that's some sort of a viral game plan. So, there's a lot of different viral game plans that are out there, tons of them, and I don't care what yours is, just make sure that you have a solid one and you're working towards something, right? You have to have a vision to be able to make it happen. If you don't have a vision, then spend part of your time whenever you're sleeping or waking up or before you go to bed thinking about what that vision is. In the short term, it's pretty easy. You have a problem getting leads right now? Run your lead mining software or your lead nurturing software like Local Autopilot. Whenever you get leads put into it, cold call people, email people, walk around and talk to people. I mean, these things have all worked in the past and are working now. It's a matter of whether you've got the right personality and the right approach and you're putting in the right amount of hours to get your initial leads. It's not going to be easy in the very beginning, but you do need to have some sort of a longer term game plan on what you're going to do to make things easier to get the leads coming through at a greater volume to get yourself into more of a viral growth arena. If you don't have the vision, if you don't have the game plan, fat chance of it just happening and falling into place, right? So you want to have something that you do work towards. You want more of a longer term plan. Countdown to number 4, selling the client what makes them happy, not as what's best for them. This happens a lot. I understand whenever you don't have a lot of clients and maybe you're hurting to onboard more clients, and every single client that you land is absolutely necessary money to be putting into your bank account. And when you're in a situation like that, it's hard if you're put in a position to where you need to choose what's best for the client or what's best for your bank account. But you also need to ask yourself this, are you looking for a short-term client or a long-term client? And, you need to understand what's best for your client at the same time. So sometimes people make a decision to sell a client what's best for their bank account and not what's best for the client based on their marketing needs. And sometimes people simply don't know what's best for the client. But certainly something that I've seen as a big issue is people not understanding what their clients need done for them in terms of their online marketing presence throughout 2013. So, for instance, some people will select services for a client that will never return them any ROI, and it doesn't really matter how much of that is done. Like, for instance, let's say that you have a client in Little Rock, Arkansas, or a suburb out of Little Rock, Arkansas, and they're a radiator repair shop, and there's like 20,000 people in that city. There's only one radiator repair shop. Everyone knows who they are. If they spend $1,000 a month in an SEO product or $5,000 a month in an SEO product, if they had that budget, is it going to bring them a lot more business? Probably not, especially if it says that there's no search traffic there and they're already known by every single person in their entire city. Is that going to boom them? Probably not. Some people might go out there and sell it to them. I mean, what really do they need? I mean, a client like that needs to rely more on print and more localized advertising through the typical marketing channels, really. Some people, I have seen this, but it's on a rare occasion. I had actually a woman on the phone one time, and she had me looking into a campaign, which I typically don't do, but this was about 6 months ago or more. And she had me looking at this website, and then I started looking at their rankings, and I started looking at service after service after service and looking at their rankings, and I realized that they're ranking in the top 3 positions for nearly every single keyword I can think of for them. And then I asked this lady, I said, do you mind if I inquire to you on why would they need your marketing services? And she said, well, I think that there's always room for improvement. But, my advice to her was, all right, well, if you do buy an SEO campaign through us, skip month 1 in on-page optimization and don't let us touch that thing because there is no room for improvement there. I mean, they've got 1 through 3 rankings on everything. No one's going to rank number 1 for everything. That's just unrealistic. Do not touch their marketing. I don't know who's doing it, but they're brilliant. But she wanted to go out there and sell them a really big marketing package in SEO. Because she could. Is that what they need? Or should they keep doing what they're doing in-house to hold those rankings and maybe pay her to do social media or pay-per-click marketing or other things? You know what I mean? It's pretty clear to me what should have been done in that situation. So, there is the differentiation between doing what's best for your client and what's best for your bank account. And I recommend doing what's best for your client. Selecting keywords that are too competitive is just going to be unrealistic for the client. A lot of people come in, They skip our keyword consulting. They choose the competitive keywords because it's easier to sell to the client, and they never rank for those keywords. And by the time they get on the table to have a campaign audited and we come back and say those are too competitive, then it causes issues, clearly. Trying to rank for too many cities the client has no physical location is. People should know that you shouldn't go into a client that lives, say, 2 hours outside of Kansas City and tell them that you're going to get them ranked in Kansas City. That's going to be an issue, right? If their physical location is not in the city that you're trying to market them for, there should be a huge caution sign given to that client saying, hey, I can't guarantee anything with this. For competitive keywords, not consulting the client on the size of their website and realistic content requirements to compete. Maybe a competitive keyword, has competition that's just huge. I mean, maybe your client's trying to go after keywords where their competition has a website that is 10 times as big with 10 times as much relevant, rich content, and has a great standing in their online marketing presence built up over the last 10 years, and you're consulting them that you can go in and compete on a budget where you're paying your outsourced provider like $200 a month. That's just not realistic. So I definitely saw a lot of issues. One of the biggest issues definitely of 2013 was people over-promising what they can do for clients and under-delivering. Okay, so countdown number 3, improper management of client expectations, which is pretty much what we lead into. Especially if you have a sales team, when you're offering SEO services, you got to make sure that they need to know that traffic doesn't come overnight, and sometimes not in the first 3 months. It depends on, their keyword traffic. But I think that people should be including a small PPC campaign, if possible, for every single client that you're starting up. They're needing to see traffic. PPC helps to research those keywords to understand what you're going after, but at least running a remarketing or a retargeting campaign for the client at the same time. So top 4 mistakes of managing client expectations: promising to deliver page 1 rankings for all their keywords; 2, promising to make them tons of money without understanding the campaign's traffic potential; 3, promising to show them dramatic results in the first 3 months of an SEO campaign, which can happen, but you don't want to promise that; and 4, promising e-commerce clients page 1 rankings for the products without knowing if their products are unique to them. E-commerce sites are a different animal. Most of them have duplicate products from somewhere else online. Most of them have all duplicate product descriptions. Many of them iframe in their entire e-commerce division, or it's hosted off of some other website, and it's just an absolute SEO and ranking nightmare to step into. But I see company after company stepping in to e-commerce SEO situations and promising the world, partly because e-commerce SEO can be very profitable, but the reality is e-commerce SEO is difficult to make successful. Doable, but they need unique product descriptions and they need a well-structured e-commerce website, and most of them are a complete train wreck. Countdown number 2, not consulting with clients about their online written content. So this mainly applies to SEO services, right? So in an SEO campaign, you could replace the word SEO with content creation and strategic publication. So you're writing content for the client and you're publishing it online, which makes you a branding firm, right? At the core basics. If you're going to sit down and write content for your client through several different mediums like press releases, company updates, promotions, industry news, informational article, social media updates, and you're the company responsible for writing that and publishing it, never mind SEO, never mind the purpose of traffic generation. If you're just creating that content and publishing it, that makes you a branding firm. Does anyone have any feedback on that? Because that's a really important point. So we're talking about the basics of SEO, what kind of content that you're writing and publishing, and directly if you're offering our SEO services. If you're responsible for writing that content and publishing it, you're a branding firm at the heart, right? Now the question comes into, where is it published? And what is the strategy on interlinking behind the publications? Okay, now we're getting into SEO methodology. But the core basics goes into the writing and the publication of that content, which means that you start out as a branding firm and you specialize as a traffic generation firm through methodology. Okay? Most people do not realize this, and you really need to realize this because that's where the industry is going. The quality of the SEO campaign is dependent on the quality of the written content created. Assuming that your publication and interlinking strategy once published is in alignment, the performance and the quality of that SEO campaign is going to be dependent on the quality of the written content. Now, I don't care if your writers are in-house or yourself or it's our team sitting over here. Whenever it comes to things like press releases and promotions and company updates and even info articles or social media updates, if we don't have some relevant feedback from the client, our hands are fairly tied on the level of quality that we can write that content at, because it's dependent on a certain amount of feedback, which is why we even created our content scheduler, which is a public link that can be given direct required. So the level of writing is very important, but keeping in mind that at the heart of what you do in SEO is you being a branding firm, because the heart of SEO is the content that is created. Then if you're not consulting with your client about what kind of content that needs to be written, and if you think that just because we're this white label agency that you plug into and you do not have to talk to your client and everything's just super easy, all you do is sell it, throw it to us, we'll do everything, and you don't have to do anything, then your expectations on what's required as you as a marketing agency and a branding agency is not realistic. You need to consult with your client about what kind of content is going to be written for them. At the heart of what you do is as a branding firm. Out are the old days of just being a traffic generation firm. You can't just go and publish crap content that has nothing to do with the client site anymore all over the place, even with software, and get the high rankings. It's all about quality now, and the quality of that content comes from being personalized to that particular client, which means interaction is required, which means that when you go to price out your SEO services, you need to factor in that you do need to have some ongoing consulting time with your client to help consult them with what kind of content's going to be written for them. Our writers can handle the writing, but they need feedback. But even if you had in-house writers, you could consult with your client and get certain feedback on different things that they're going to be writing, right? Even on our, Endless Rise we have our own marketing division internally, but my marketing director has to speak to me from time to time. In fact, I'm late getting back to him on what we're going to be going over on this upcoming webinar. He needs informational feedback from me. If it doesn't matter what it is, if I'm his point of contact for Endless Rise, yeah, he's sending me emails and he needs regular communication on what he's writing about and approval on what's being written about as well. And I think a lot of people overlook that, and it shouldn't be overlooked. So through the social bookmarks, through their social media channels, through their offsite blogs. If we write company updates and then there are things that no one could care more about, then it's not going to have much of an impact, right? Social updates that entertain your client and social community. Some feedback on that. Info article ideas that searchers are actively seeking, which we can put more research into on our site, certainly. But the basis of the matter with SEO is this: SEO is always going to evolve towards what Google wants it to evolve towards, and Google has been saying this for a really long time. Don't build links, just produce high quality content that people are willing to build links to and share and socially engage in. So, there's been shortcuts for many years, and there still are shortcuts to get those links, but with where everything's going to go in the SEO world, it's going to continually shape towards requiring better content that stimulates users to interact with it through linking or liking or commenting on or doing something with. And that's going to require you to be in more communication with the client as a brand consultant. So you need to be aware of that. This should be pretty obvious to everyone that follows the online trends, but it's usually clouded with a lot of other jibber jabber around it, but that's pretty much just the straightforward talk about it. Chris says, so it is about customizing the content for the client. I keep seeing a lot of SEO traffic software emails on WSOs, which probably don't work as well now. Chris is pretty much asking, so, software publication automation isn't a good idea anymore. I don't know. I'd have to test it out. It might be. There's still a lot of shortcuts that work, but here's the thing. Don't do something for your client that you don't think is going to work in the future. So if you're questioning, what does it work now? Is that shortcut going to work? Is that something that someone says, I can build you 1,000 links. I can get you into a blog network and do X, Y, Z. If you think that that's not going to work in the future, then don't do it. That's how we handle what we do. And as soon as we have certain things that we might do that we feel like become questionable on whether or not they'll work in the future, we work towards changing them. Okay, so what is the number one biggest mistake that I've seen SEO firms and digital marketing agencies make in 2013? And that's positioning your agency solely as a traffic company and not as a branding company. And this might come as a big surprise to some people as why this one would be number one. But here's why. Because at the heart of the SEO is the content that's created. And whenever you write the type of content that needs to be written for SEO, that's branding. That's brand publication, and that's at the heart of every SEO firm. But no one embraces that. I mean, it's very rare. You saw a trend starting to embrace it. I actually met a gentleman at the Denver Local Marketing Summit that's a reseller of ours, and I gave this presentation in Denver, and he walked up to me afterwards and said, you know what, you hit the nail on the head on that. He said, I have a local competitor that's frontlining as a branding company, selling traffic generation as a byproduct of great branding online. He said, he's whooping my butt. And I said, yeah, rightfully so. The really popular, one-liner that I've heard from online marketing agencies over the past 3 years is this, and everyone says it. My client doesn't care about what I do. All they want to see is traffic. Now, it's your responsibility to change that perception. So what was that line again? My client doesn't care about what I do for them. They only care about traffic. You have to change that. With where the future is going in SEO, and I would like to start that right now, which is if what you're doing for your client in SEO from a brand perspective isn't worth it to your client, then your service to them is not worth their time, right? So you got to work on their brand and have faith that the traffic will come. The search engine updates are moving too fast. All right, if you think that you can scale a lot of clients with as fast as the SEO industry ran in 2013 and have an SEO service that does include shortcuts, and if you think you can keep up with all the algorithm updates by studying them, by interpreting them, by figuring all of them out and analyzing X, Y, and Z and trying to repair everything and re-strategize what you're doing, you're not being realistic. What you need to do is you need to be able to say, okay, I understand Google terms of service. I understand what they're looking for. Google says, don't worry about trying to fool the search engines. Don't worry about trying to produce rankings. They say go out there and just put your brand out there to the best of your ability and let us analyze your brand and what people think about your brand, and we'll rank you according to what we want to rank you by. And if we think that you're trying to trick us, we're going to give you some distrust credits and rank you even lower. Now, that's Google. Now, if anyone thinks that they're smarter than Google, then raise your hand. If you think that you have more technology and better ways to analyze Google than Google does, then raise your hand. And if you don't, then why would you play that game? You see what I'm saying? Now, you might have said differently 2 years ago when Google was saying that, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to enforce this and we're going to enforce that. And 2 years ago, they were full of it. They weren't doing any of it. They were ranking people that had no business ranking. They were giving people ranking capabilities for just buying a domain name with a keyword in it. They were giving people ranking huge credits for just buying links and participating in blog forums and running SE Nuke and doing everything that you weren't supposed to be doing 2 years ago was working. But things have changed. All those things that Google warned that they were on top of, that they were going to do, that they were going to have the technology to implement, well, they weren't lying. They just weren't able to do it then. But they were working on it. They were not full of it. And it's here and it's now. So now everyone needs to pay attention to Google's message, which is to focus on what they're really wanting and increasing the brand. I mean, 2 years ago, if someone came to me and said, hey, Paul, should I buy keyword company name plus city.com because it's going to help me rank better? I'd say, yeah, that seems to be a really good idea. Now if someone came to me and said, hey, Paul, should I buy HoustonDentist.net, or should I buy drrichardjameson.net, dds.net, or .com? I'd say, well, go with the company name. Don't buy that keyword.com domain name. I don't care how good it is. Don't buy it typically. Or buy your company name plus dentist on it, but don't go with the full keyword in it. Why? Because it's just normal. It's more natural. You got to start doing things that make sense, which puts you in a position to becoming more of a branding firm going forward. So in other words, you need to start your logic as being an internet marketing provider around this. You build them the proper brand online and the rankings should come. What does that mean? It means their website needs to have good usability. It needs to be naturally written. It does need to have some basic structuring for SEO compliance, which probably could do another webinar on, but most things are pretty common sense with it. There's not a lot of shortcuts or tricks anymore. It's just high quality content and great structuring. And then, yeah, they're off-site channels. You know, if they have off-site blogs, those can help inside of the brand network, which is part of our SEO services. Their own off-site press release sites for publication, like 4 or 5 of them, their own social bookmarking accounts, 4 or 5 of them in their own brand name, their social media account set up and active in their own brand name. It's their entire brand presence that's now being analyzed, along with, yes, links. But guess what? I can have a webinar and I could go through top ranking sites all day long that have less than 50 backlinks. Say that one more time. I could go through top ranking sites all day long on a webinar and show you ones that have less than 50 backlinks. So what does it mean? Do we do backlinks? Yes, we do. But the vast majority of our ongoing monthly effort is towards content creation and publication through their brand network. And what do I call a brand network? A brand network is what? Their website owned by them, their social media channels in their name branded to them, owned by them, their social bookmarking channels owned by them in their name, branded, not too many of them, their offsite blogs in their name, in their brand, owned by them. That's their brand network. And we stimulate that and write content and publish it out and try to get interaction and people paying attention to it. And even their only 4, about their top 4 press release sites are in their own company name, branded to them. People like the press releases, then they link to them. But even when we do press release publications, are we doing press release publications to get links? No. Why are we only publishing it out to 4 top press release sites? because we don't want to overdo it, but the whole purpose is just to get it out there. The press release will rank by itself. But if someone picks up that press release and says this was really newsworthy and shares it, that's where the credit comes from back to the site. It's the way that it's supposed to be. So you got to realize that you're going to become a branding firm if you're an SEO firm, and the better branded content and that's published, the higher quality their SEO is going to become, and the better they're going to rank. That day and age is here. But the problem is, people are saying, even though the better their brand, the better the content that's out there, the more people will engage with it, which will mean as a byproduct, the better their rankings will become if strategized in proper alignment, which isn't rocket science anymore. Why is it that you're getting clients that would say to you, I don't care what you do for me, I just want the traffic? But the industry has changed. Now it depends what you do for them to get them the traffic, because it's not just all about the strategy. They need to have a good brand, and they need to be involved in it as a client. They need to be willing to pay for your SEO services as a branding service alone due to the value of those services, regardless of traffic. As a branding firm, if you outlined everything that's done in our SEO campaign and the client doesn't see enough value in that just from a branding perspective, then you're not presenting the value of the services. And if your client looks at you and says, I don't care what you do for me online, I just want to see the traffic, you have to educate them. Industry has changed, but the problem is internet marketing agencies are not changing their outlook on this and their brand image on this, and you have to. You want to be ahead of the game, and not a lot of people are talking about this, but this is the core basics to everything, and you need to be on top of this yourself, which is why I think it's really cool that with the whole uniqueness factor that we went over, you know, talking about being more of a brand agency and less of presenting yourself solely as a traffic agency. I mean, what if when someone kicks off their SEO campaign, you are able to partner with a local, you know, physical print shop, and you're able to throw them their brochures and their T-shirts and their hats and get their brand out there more locally. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea, right? So Stefan says, so who is actually doing the branding, Endless Rise or we are? Well, I mean, if you know, we have our content scheduler that allows you to go in and give us notes on what we're writing about, and even schedule when we write about what we write about. That's one of the really nice things about us. We gave you that tool that can also be shared directly with the client. And my recommendation is that you set up quarterly branding check-in meetings with your client. Monthly micro check-in meetings, but quarterly big meetings where you go over what's going to be written for them throughout the quarter, take all the notes, put it in the scheduler, and you have that every single quarter, which is why I also recommend that you don't charge your client monthly, that you charge them at a minimum quarterly. So every single quarter, you have your big meeting going over the brand consulting that you're going to give to them on what to write about and give them tips on it, right? And you set up these quarterly meetings, and monthly is more micro check-in meetings. Why kill yourself with monthly check-in meetings and making sure you're getting paid every single month when you don't need to? You don't. So that's my number one on the countdown. There were some honorable mentions. Marketing companies not marketing themselves. Online design and marketing companies not designing their own websites to represent, which is why we came out with our reseller websites that can be purchased and further customized, but at least it gives you an enterprise level presence to go off of. Not structuring client check-in meetings the right way. Like if you have a client check-in meeting and you don't have an official format, then you're already not professional. Let me say that one more time. If you have scheduled check-in meetings with your client and you have no official format, you are not professional. Okay? What's that mean? Have a PowerPoint. Have some sort of a screen sharing with them. Make them feel like they're going through an official check-in meeting. And I recommend to have the official structured check-in meetings quarterly. And your monthly check-in meetings can be a verbal question and answer. How are things going? Here's a quick update, maybe on traffic, whatever. Maybe something small, right? But your quarterly needs to be preferably structured in PowerPoint and something that you put together. And yeah, that's something that's going to make your company a bit unique. You'll have to figure out what you're going to do. Another honorable mention on Top Mistake 2013, not educating the client on how to interpret the work reports. If you're sharing the work reports, especially ours, to your client and you're not going over them in meetings and you don't have educational material on how to have them interpret them, then don't share them to the client. It's okay to not give the client work reports and say that you can just schedule a meeting with me and I'll go over the reports with you whenever you want to see them. But otherwise, you can let them know that it has intellectual property on it and you don't hand over the full report unless they schedule a meeting to go over it with you. But if you think that you can just hand over the detailed level of work report that we give to you and just hand it to the client and say, hey, yo, don't worry about a check-in meeting this month. I'm busy this quarter. Don't worry about it. I've shared with them their work report. I've sent them their analytics report. Moving on. Don't overwhelm the client with reporting and not explain it to them. And I see so many people doing that. This is such a huge mistake. Not setting customer support time expectations and structure is a huge one. If you don't have structured customer support time and channels, you're going to get overran. People talk to me about having problematic clients that haunt them. I've heard people say before, man, I got this client, I don't charge him very much, I shouldn't have taken him on. This guy's calling me every single day, blah, 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 blah. Why did you ever have a support structure that allows someone to call you every day unless you're making a lot of money off of that person and you're okay with it? They're one client to you and they're big enough to where that's the only client that you need and you're okay being haunted by them all the time and having to do all this stuff for them in consulting. But if they're not that big of a client, then why would they be able to call you all the time? You don't have a support structure in place. That's why. You know, if you want to think support structure, think about your doctor. Can you call them for free advice? Do they have structured support? Absolutely, which is really, really simple. None. Make an appointment. Come in. Well, what if it's an attorney? What if it's an accountant? What if it's any sort of a high-level consultant that does offer phone consulting? Well, typically you always have to schedule an appointment. Nearly any person that's high level, for the most part, the higher level they are, the more often you're going to have to schedule an appointment and you cannot just call them. You know, throughout this, in the States, I have a law firm and an accounting firm that are within the top 5 in the States. Both of them I can call into, but if they pick up that phone and I do get a hold of my point of contact, they start tracking that time. It doesn't matter if I called in just to say hello and Merry Christmas and I'm on that phone with them for 15 minutes. It's at 1 hour minimum that I'm going to be docked. There goes $350 for that hour. So sure, they let me contact them anytime I want for $350 an hour and a bare minimum of 1 hour per phone call. Or if I do not get a hold of them, I need to email them and I need to schedule a meeting. So there's a lot of different ways to structure your customer support. If you have complaints about your clients abusing your customer support, blame yourself for not setting the structure there. If you have the structure there and you have clients that are continually abusing the structure, then you should have points written into it to where for people that need above and beyond typical support time that you can start charging them. And then for that client that's being overly abusive, you can start charging them if you have to, or just not answering the phone, but at least you can put in front of them the original terms of support that they paid for. Whoa, did I just say paid for? So are you telling me that when your client pays for SEO services or web design services or any other services from you, that part of that payment goes towards customer support? Of course it is. Customer support is part of your terms and conditions on the services that you provide to the client. So if you're not writing this customer support terms and conditions into their contract somewhere, then you're wide open. You're absolutely wide open. Customer support costs you money. You have to identify and make clear your customer support terms with your client when they pay. Maybe if someone wants VIP treatment, then you charge them an additional 25% per month on their campaign for unlimited phone support and consulting if that's what they're going to be requiring of you. Okay, so that's my honorable mention. So this should conclude my 2013 top mistakes. I'll just go on a quick run through before we take some questions and answers and wrap it up. So on the top 10 countdown, number 10, we went over not working hard enough to get leads. Number 9, not pricing services properly. Number 8, lack of marketing agency uniqueness. Number 7, insufficient legal paperwork. Number 6, little to no training materials for employees. Number 5, no viral growth game plan. Number 4, selling the client what makes them happy, not what is best for them. Number 3, improper management of client expectations. Number 2, not consulting with clients about their online written content direction. And number 1, positioning your agency solely as a traffic company and not as a branding company. So, I think there's a lot to be learned about looking at mistakes that other people have made in 2013, and maybe especially if you're new coming into the market, making sure that you don't make the same. And to summarize all of them, it's really just missing the core basics on what you need to be aware of when you're running an digital marketing agency. How to position yourself, how to show the value of what it is that you're giving to people, and covering the real basic business practices and infrastructures that need to be set up for not just a digital marketing agency, but really any small company that's starting up. Okay, Matt, I think I'm done rambling.
You probably need a drink of water there. No, that was fantastic. I mean, that was that, folks, I think you can all appreciate was I don't know how many thousands of dollars worth of consulting, but brought to you today at no charge. So we do thank Paul for putting that together, for sharing with us. And it's just, there's so much there that you can take away from, and you can start to build your business around in 2014. If you're missing some of those elements, schedule out, maybe make a plan to put 1 or 2 in place. I mean, you might not be able to put all 10 in place next month, of course. That's going to be a lot of work, but pick out what you think is the priorities for yourself, and maybe put 2 of those per month over the next 5-6 months to try and implement. And so I mean, there's just so much. I was taking some notes, some of the highlights. I think one of the keys that I hear and talk to people in support is, and Paul defined it very well, is direct marketing hours versus I'm researching marketing techniques, or I'm learning about this service set, or this new technique for getting leads, versus actually foot on the street, passing out flyers, sending out emails. And that really is a dividing line that I see between agencies that I work with in support here in Nitro, and who are excelling and moving forward, and those who are struggling and looking for that first set of clients. And Kevin calls it the hustle period. He calls about getting those first few clients. I mean, you got to be a hustler, and you got to hustle it out, and get those first few clients, and then then things start to change, because you will get some referrals, and you will things will start to lock into place. But there is definitely a period of doing some hustling. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
and,
mean,
and hustling till you have them as well. One of the things I didn't mention was people that will hustle until they find a couple people respond, and they get a couple leads on the line that they start communicating with, and they stop their hustling, and they sit back and cross their fingers and say, I've got 2 really good leads on the line. I'm just going to stop hustling because I don't like hustling, and I'm just going to try to close these 2 guys. And they stop the hustle completely. You got to hustle until you're paid and paid and paid and paid. There is no winning until you get paid. It doesn't matter if you've got 50 people responding to you through email. You'd never stop hustling and getting new leads in that pipeline until you get paid. And that's a big mistake. I've seen one company before go out of business, in my opinion, just because they stopped hustling and started paying attention and giving all their attention to the leads that were asking them for more consulting, dragging things out. They weren't able to close them, but they weren't hustling to get more leads. They got out of the hustle, and they got into directly just communicating with potential leads, and kicked back and relaxed, and went out of business.
I mean, that is really a good point. I think there's something to your psyche too, that if you're constantly out there chasing leads, I think the leads that you got in the funnel, I think they get a sense of that, right? They feel that energy, like, I'm not the only game in town, I guess. I guess this guy, maybe he doesn't totally need me. So, I don't know, there's just something about the positioning of that when you got all these leads coming in, and you're, yeah, I'll get back to you, but I got like 15 other people in the pot too here.
Well,
So,
and the truth of the matter is, when you get a hot lead that someone's ready to go on, and if you do have a good sales pitch down, they pay pretty quickly. You know, you start making
Mm.
progress pretty rapidly towards accepting payment. And there's people that'll drag it out and drag it out. But I don't know what it is about that drag out. I think it's just people that are you know, mainly resistant to the hustle. I've seen people that have been in the online marketing sales ballgame for years that are still, you know, they get intertwined with a potential lead and they stop hustling. And their companies remain small. They never grow. It's the guys that hustle and hustle hard and fast, and those are the guys that grow the most. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would just encourage everybody to take maybe a deep dive about where your business is at and decide, because there's a lot of people on the phone here. I recognize some names who I know have had some great success in the last 30 to 60 days, with bringing on clients. I'm looking at one right now that he's emailed me in support and said, hey, I'm up to about 10,000 a month recurring. And so, he's here and he's attending, and he's probably going to apply Paul's advice in a different strategy. In fact, he wrote in and he just said, this is great information. So he was obviously taking notes about the next level for his business. And then I'm sure we got people on here that are brand new and, they need to get some of the basics down and then take Paul's advice and refine and polish the business as you go through the year. But this will be one you'll want to write down and refer back to. This is a good refresher because it's not like these top 10 mistakes are going to go away. They'll probably be the same in 2014. So,
Yeah, they don't. This is one of the this is one of the webinars that I can go on about forever because it's like I get to vent. Because here's the problem: people spend all their time reading the online SEO advice columns and paying attention to the high-end technical consulting stuff that's out there, and they miss all of the basics. And they have their head so high up in the technical and the high-end stuff that they're going to be doing, and they miss all the basics and they fail, and they don't understand why. And Matt, it didn't matter whether I was in Denver at the local summit or when I was in New York at SMX. It was the same story throughout. Everyone's just missing the bare bones basics. But the companies that are doing the best out there that are using us, their strategy is very straightforward. Hustle, close the sale, pipe it through the outsource, understand the 80-20 rule with outsourcing, roll with the punches if they are there, and just sell, close. And it doesn't have to be an elegant strategy. Find one, work hard on it, make it happen, hustle, close it down, move forward. It's actually ridiculously simple to be successful in SEO, but it takes a lot of work when you're hard, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And everyone's missing that. And hopefully this webinar helps people to kind of circle back around and get on board. One thing I didn't mention as well was on the whole branding thing, clearly tracking traffic for people keyword by keyword by keyword and rankings just by each keyword is going out of date because what Google's now telling you what to do with keywords. Not use the exact keyword in your writing all the time, use synonyms, use different variations. So if that's the case, why would you only track particular keywords for Google rankings to show to the client? Well, yeah, we still sell our SEO packages based on keyword quantities, but that gives us really the baseline of what to go off of on the marketing strategy. But you need to be able to track keywords on every single keyword that's been searched for your client to show the value behind that. And we'll be releasing the monster metrics in February that'll come free with campaigns to be able to help track every single keyword that's being searched for your client. So for instance, right now in the keyword ranking dashboard, maybe you're tracking 3 keywords for your client, but with the new keyword ranking dashboard through Monster Metrics, you might be tracking 300 keywords. So it's going to be a big shift. So I understand that to get more into the branding level and seeing traffic as a byproduct of good branding, you need a different way to track that and track the value, and we'll be building out that metrics with the first release of the platform in February under the name of Monster Metrics. So
cool. Well, exciting stuff. Well, folks, we are about an hour and 45 minutes down the road here, and I know most of you probably have things on your calendar to get to, and so I think we'll look at winding some things down. I know we have some questions that maybe we weren't able to get to, but but we don't want to extend this out, into 2+ hours. And so I'll probably note those down, and maybe we'll circle back to catch those in February. I think there's a lot of content here today to keep your mind busy for the coming weeks. And so I thank you for your participation. Joanne, I thank you. I'll just highlight Joanne's comment here because she's representative of some other ones I'm seeing here. Wow, I'm so impressed. Exceptional webinar. I was so engulfed and focused during the whole message from beginning to end. Great presentation, Paul. Very skill building information. One of my favorite webinars. Thank you so much, Paul. So thank you, Joanne, because we do these to benefit you and your agency, which in turn it's a symbiotic relationship, right? And then you keep sending more clients to Paul, and you keep connected with Nitro Marketing. So we're all in this together, and the more that everybody's business builds up, the better for everyone. So I thank you for your feedback. I see some additional feedback coming in. So yeah, if you've got well wishes or comments, feedback for Paul, for us, do let us know. We love to see that, and so we can craft these. Speaking of ROI, we can craft these webinars to deliver a positive ROI for your time. And so thank you for your attendance today. With that said, I don't know if Paul, if you got any final comments. Otherwise, I'll probably wind her down here.
That's all for now, Matt. Good.
All right, well, you said a lot today, so I understand. It's exhausting. It really is. I mean, it's super exhausting. So I thank you for your time, and yeah, look for more from us. I think in the future months, folks, on this shift to branding. I mean, Paul caught my attention there. Branding network. That's quite an interesting concept. So I'll try and put my brain around some of that as we do maybe a Q&A session next or 2 weeks from now about what that means. I saw some questions on branding. How do I learn about branding? Maybe I can reach into the internet and or ask around and find some good training or maybe some blogs on that, because I think it is a shift that Paul's picked up on, and it's going to be a huge shift, and so you want to be on top of it. And so we will put that down for upcoming webinars, everybody. So thank you again for coming. Thank you for the comments. They're pouring in here. Lots of nice